The New York Liberty will regret firing Sandy Brondello.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Kalia Butler. Alongside me is my co-host, Sophia Jones. We're excited to be back with you again today. Some fantastic topics to cover once again. We're going to go over Olivia Miles and why she decided not to enter the draft last season. Part of it being because of these CBA negotiations, as well as talking further about those CBA negotiations. Supposed to be the deadline on October 31st, and Adam Silver had something to add to it. However, we have some breaking news for the Toronto Tempo, the 2026 expansion team for the WNBA. They have hired, sorry guys, my dog's in the back.
I think London's excited about the news on who they hired, so tell us.
London is excited. She's actually going to come break the news for us. But they've hired Sandy Brondello from the New York Liberty to be their first head coach of the expansion team, the Toronto Tempo. And I just feel like New York is really going to regret making this decision. Sandy seems like an absolutely fantastic fit for the Tempo, and I think we knew that there weren't going to be any teams that weren't going to take her, essentially.
Definitely. When we had our coaches free agency discussion the other episode, we were saying it was essentially going to be the Sandy Brondello sweepstakes for all the teams besides the New York Liberty. And when they initially were moving away from her, they used the term innovation and evolution, which I guess kind of makes sense in that you don't want to stick with the same person maybe, but I think that Sandy Brondello has such a brilliant coaching mind, and I think that we've seen her evolve as a coach. So I think we were all shocked when the New York Liberty decided not to continue with her and renew her contract. But I'm not surprised that she landed in Toronto. We talked about it, like we said, the other episode, where she's from Australia and already has an international flair and presence. So a city in Canada like Toronto, where the Tempo are essentially going to be Canada's team, I think that'll be a good fit. And what a knock out of the park for the Tempo in their head coaching hire, and just having someone at the helm to really lay down the foundation for what this franchise is going to be.
In our discussions too, I just believe Sandy is going to be fantastic for player development. And I was, comparing it to what we saw from the Valkyries this season, full of international players getting their first time to really showcase why they should be in the WNBA. You think of a Kate Martin, obviously, only in her second season, Caitlin Chen being able to, be on the team, leave, come back, Veronica Burton finally, getting her real chance to showcase why she's the most improved player of the year. I think she is going to bring that sort of caliber to the Toronto Tempo because she's such a relationship first head coach. You can tell even just in the exit interviews with Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu when, they were playing their final games and weren't able to make it any further, within the playoffs. A reporter had asked, Breanna Stewart was just like, do you guys, think that Sandy will be here next year? And everybody looked at that reporter crazy and were like, what are you talking about? But unfortunately, New York did decide to not renew with her. But you can just see that the shock on Sabrina's face, Breanna's face, even Sandy's face, nobody was really seeing it coming, but you could tell that they rode for her so hard. And that was part of Breanna's explanation too, that people would be insane not to, keep her around just to see her, be separated from this team. But that doesn't mean that won't translate very well to another team. I mean, she's a championship caliber head coach. She led the Phoenix Mercury in 2014 to a WNBA championship. Obviously, New York Liberty in 2024. she knows what she's doing, but I think a lot of it comes just from the relationship she builds with players. And the New York Liberty assistant coach and offensive coordinator, Zach O'Brien, said that Sandy is the most consistent person that he knows. So she's going to have, her rituals, her schedule. She's going to bring that to a new organization. And I think players are really going to benefit from it.
100%. She just has a very warm aura to herself as well. In every single one of my interactions with her, she's been super smiley and just receptive and communicative to honestly the entire media from what I've seen, which is huge. And you can tell the love that her players and her just all share. But to your point with the player development, I'll be very interested in this next draft as well, because when you look at Brondello's coaching history with her coaching a Diana Taurasi for so long, one of the best to ever do it, one of the best point guards to ever do it. There are a good number of elite guards in this next draft class, like an Olivia Miles, who we're going to talk about soon, Tania Latson, Flau'jae Johnson. We don't know where they're all going to land, but I think that's a very exciting opportunity. Or even with Brondello coaching Sabrina Ionescu as well, and we saw what she was able to do with her when she came out of college or came out of Oregon. So that's all going to be very, very exciting to see, I think. But Brondello, she just has such a great basketball mind as well. I think whenever you think about the New York Liberty's style of play, it was very much both sides of the floor, but especially offensively, there's so many weapons that could attack you at any given time. And I think that kind of cohesiveness starts with the coach and how a coach instills confidence in every one of their players.
I think my biggest takeaways from seeing the Liberty and just how Sandy Brondello coaches is they like to play with pace. They like to play with space, and they have great shot selection. They're not only looking for a good shot, they're looking for a great shot. And it's helpful when you have, efficient scorers like that, where honestly, all of their shots are almost great shots, essentially, because who's not going to trust Stewie to put it in the basket or Sabrina Ionescu to shoot a three? But I think she allowed players to play with a lot of freedom while also maintaining a structured system. And that's why I believe this expansion team can have a lot of success with her at the helm, because these are going to be brand new faces. A lot of obviously maybe rookies being added. You mentioned the guard plays and the elite guards that are coming into this 2026 draft. That's going to play a really big factor, as well as just the expansion lottery as well. So you never know who you can get. And again, we've seen a lot of overseas players. So when you add all those factors, these are people that are going to try to figure out how to play with each other very quickly. Natalie Nakase said that even at the end of the season when they were in the playoffs, that they were still learning each other. I think Sandy is going to be excellent at this because she allows that freedom, allows players to get into their rhythm, and allows them to learn one another and figure things out instead of feeling like, oh, we can only run this way, we can only play this way. She gives them freedom within a system of like, okay, this is how we're going to play, but you guys can add a little flair and a little something in between there. But I'm really excited to see this, and especially just with how the draft is going to go. I think this is going to be a really exciting team.
Definitely. I think for every expansion team, it's just something new, something fresh. You were mentioning earlier just about players on the Valkyries that got the opportunity to showcase their talents. And I think that is at the end of the day the beauty of expansion, because a lot of times talent is always there. It's just about giving the right opportunity. There's a quote, or like a seed just needs to be planted in the right soil to grow, essentially, which I think that's a little bit along the lines of where we can see expansion teams and maybe talent that hasn't gotten the recognition or just the playing time. And I think that Sandy Brondello is a coach that just, with her player development, but also on court performance, will allow those seeds to germinate.
Your environment means everything, and whether you're a plant or a WNBA player. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Olivia Miles and what she had to say about the CBA negotiations happening in the WNBA right now. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. I love that you are getting the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Upfront payment of $45 is required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow about 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, so TCU's Olivia Miles delays going pro amid WNBA CBA talks. I thought this was really interesting because she said she knew that people were surprised by her bypassing the 2025 WNBA draft because she likely would have been a lottery pick already. But she said that the WNBA is figuring out their own stuff and we're just watching in terms of, these next wave of players that can be in this year's draft. She mentioned this during Big 12 Media Day. She said right now it's still opinions on what's going to change. We hear there is going to be a lot of player movement and the league will look different next season. So for now, I just prioritize what is right in front of me. And I thought this was a very mature statement from her. She's not trying to rush her professional career because she basically said the pros are always going to be there for her right now. She wants to utilize college as much as she possibly can. And I think we also have to remember that this is a player that had gotten injured and was out for a significant amount of time, was able to come back and average 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, and go 28-6 with Notre Dame. However, she feels like she's still not where she wants to be in her preparation. So she's utilizing her time in college, but also understanding that she's getting money in college too. And if that money is not promised to her right now in the WNBA, what's the point of leaving what she has for kind of a worse situation at the moment instead of being able to utilize her college career to the best of her ability?
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about money. Right now, the WNBA rookie scale contract for a lottery pick, which is what Miles most likely would have been, it comes in at just about or just under $70,000 a year. And it was reported that Olivia Miles received a $500,000 endowment essentially from the NIL collective of TCU. And there's a little bit of a difference there.
Just a little one.
Just a little bit, but I think that, I mean, that plays a factor. Her just saying her preparation. I think when you think, or especially just how quickly the turnaround is from that college season, especially for a team that went deep last year, like Notre Dame, to then WNBA training camp. If you're not feeling 100% healthy, that's, we've seen it time and time again where players make that transition, they get injured. We saw it this past season with Georgia Amore, even with Cameron Brink the season before where she tore her ACL early in the season. So God forbid, we don't want that. And for Miles to just feel completely secure in her or just be confident in how in shape she is, I think is a smart decision. Again, financial aspect does play a big part as well. But I think also just for as prolific as a college basketball player that she is, her time at Notre Dame never really got a ton of national accolades, I would say, in regards to them making it far in March Madness. And she has the opportunity to do that at TCU, which again, I think plays a factor.
I think you bring up a really good point too, because the accolades didn't necessarily match who Olivia Miles is and who she can be. I think it was kind of like what we saw, if we're comparing guards, kind of what we saw with the Haley Van Lith, where Notre Dame had so many threats, especially when she was there. Like, you have a Sonia Citron still, you have a Hannah Hidalgo. I mean, during that time, she still had a Maddie Westfeld, everybody that can be at the next level or has gone to the next level already, where it's hard for you to truly just stand out in a system that is sharing the ball so well, which led to their team's success. However, I think we saw that same problem with a Haley Van Lith, who did have a good season at LSU, but when you have a Flage on the court, when you have an Angel Reese on the court, it's very difficult for you to stand out as that individual. And I think these are two players, when we're thinking of Haley, when we're thinking of Olivia Miles, that want to stand out as guards and running a system. I think this is a good move for Olivia Miles to stand out. We saw what Haley was able to do. TCU had one of their best records to date, going 34-4, and taking over the Big 12 last season. A lot of that due to her coming in and making a significant impact. Olivia Miles, I think, is going to take over and do the exact same thing. And even head coach Mark Campbell said that she's going to be a ball dominant kid and she's going to get the usage. All of our actions will run through her. She wanted to use this year to really, really get her mind right and get ready for the pros. And she's acted like a pro since day one. What stood out to me most is when he said all of our actions will run through her. He knows exactly what sort of player he recruited to come over to TCU and essentially, in a way, take over for Haley Van Lith that they lost, who, again, played a significant role in their success last season. They know what Olivia is capable of, and saying that she is already acting like a pro while she's actively preparing for the pros, she might be very dangerous this season.
No, that's 100% what I'm hearing too. I mean, when you recruit a player like Olivia Miles, you got to know her strengths and you want to make sure that you exploit those. And for her, it's really her playmaking ability, not just scoring, but facilitation as well. And so, even where she's maybe not scoring on every single play, I think having actions run through her where she is facilitating, her talents will be put on even more of a pedestal as well, which I mean, I think right now she's predicted in the WNBA mock draft to go number 2.
Mhm.
Could she rise to a number 1? I mean, it sounds like if the ball is going to be in her hands a lot, she'll have an opportunity to prove why she deserves that number 1 spot. But yeah, I'm happy to hear that from Mark Campbell, because you got to use what you got at the end of the day. But it's also encouraging just to hear Olivia Miles acting like a pro since day one. I think that's huge. And just, I like her transparency in this whole situation, because the WNBA is going to be much different in a couple of months. She could be potentially entering a much larger rookie scale contract as well, compared to the ones that were in this current CBA, which are capped at 70,000 for those lottery picks. So more money right there. A lot of teams are upgrading their facilities as well. You have more expansion, more broadcasting rights. So it's a good time to be patient, I think, in your entrance to the W.
I agree. And that patience also comes along, obviously just the business side of things, when you're making 500,000 in college right now, that's also set towards your future. And I know a lot of people have opinions about NIL, et cetera, but the reality of the situation is that it's here and these young kids have an opportunity to, I'm saying young kids as if I'm like 40 years old, but these college players have an opportunity to provide for themselves, for their families. So they might as well use it to the best of their abilities. But also, to your point as well, her being healthy is the biggest priority, and feeling comfortable making that transition of getting into the WNBA, because we all know she is going to be there anyway. But
Yes.
coming
Sorry,
up,
one more thing. And I wouldn't put it past. I think it's great that she's also, she could be stacking up her degrees as
Yeah,
well. I think that in this day and
we
age,
love an educated woman.
we love an educated woman. And I think if you can get that degree, go get it. So I'm happy to see that as well and continuing to absorb knowledge.
I would go back. I love school, which sounds so corny. I would go back
Me
and continue
too.
my degrees. This is why Sophia and I get along. This is why we're co-hosts. We love learning. You should see our notes prepping
I
for
was going to bring that up. Like, we love putting folders and folders and folders, having an outline, like all of it.
one thing you can get from us is that we are going to be absolutely prepared for the moment at hand.
For
Uh,
sure.
But coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about the CBA negotiations and what NBA Commissioner Adam Silver had to say about them.
When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their women's and men's quality from friends and family, and let me tell you, they live up to the hype. If you've had issues with underwear, fit, comfort, or just finding the right style, Skims changed all of that. Their men's and women's lines offer something for everyone, from shapewear, boxer briefs, to classic briefs, even loungewear. It's all designed with a perfect balance of comfort and style. I own a couple pairs of their women's cotton rib boxers and a tank dress, and both those items are so comfortable and easy to lounge around in. Shop Skims men's and women's at skims.com and let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop down menu that follows.
I mean, we have Skims as a sponsor now. We might as well just have Kim K on the next podcast. I feel like that only makes sense. She's a WNBA
Yeah,
fan now. She said it.
she
She's my
is.
favorite
She's
team.
been, I think, exactly. She's been to some games. I think the next step is just coming on our podcast.
Exactly. And she can do the Skims read. It'll be like, yes, Kim, thank you, Kim. But that's above us at this point. But the WNBA Players Union executive director issued a rebuke of the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's framing of players' financial demands, saying that Silver is supporting the league's objective during collective bargaining negotiations to offer more of the same. So he came out with a statement, or I believe he was interviewed for this one. But essentially his response to increasing salaries for the WNBA players, he said that sharing makes no sense in terms of what they're asking for in receiving more of the revenue share. He said the NBA makes significantly more when it comes to revenue, and that it doesn't make sense for them to do that, that they should all have a fixed salary with the option of revenue sharing, essentially for players whose jerseys are selling the most, or who basically players that are getting the most draw. I had mixed thoughts about this. I feel as though he has a point to an extent where obviously if you're looking at the Chicago Sky, Angel Reese is likely to have the most revenue share, obviously. She is the Bayou Barbie, Chi-Town Barbie, Victoria's Secret Angel. She's all of the above and more. So it makes the most sense for her to have a significant portion of that revenue share. Uh, However, I don't see the WNBA players agreeing to something like this, because I believe a lot of them are obviously in this together for all of them to be able to support themselves on just a WNBA salary and not necessarily have to go, overseas. Obviously, there's Unrivaled and then Athletes Unlimited. But again, the traditional scope was going to play overseas, get paid, come back, play within the WNBA. So yeah, I don't see them wanting to agree to something of the sort where players are still not getting what they're owed because they still contribute to a team that is successful. If you're looking like at a Minnesota Lynx or something.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's just interesting because from the recent reports about the CBA, since we're officially a week away until they got to make a decision either to get a new one or extend the negotiations. But the growth of the WNBA has been exponential. And because we love school, if we think of like an exponential graph, it's a steep curve essentially. But the WNBA is proposing a fixed rate, which is essentially be like y equals x and just a straight line. And so that straight line over time, as if the other one is y equals x squared, they kind of are losing money when it comes to those proportions. And I think that's the problem that the WNBA players have with this fixed rate that the WNBA is trying to propose in the CBA negotiations, which is why, again, they're voting for that, or the Players Association is voting for the percentage. And I think that, again, the percentage makes sense because of the recent league's growth. And at the end of the day, the players have just voiced so much. They basically said that they want to feel like they're the reason why the league is growing, and that fixed rate doesn't necessarily reflect that, and that this deal that the WNBA and Kathy Engelbert are offering is what they refer to as putting lipstick on a pig.
First of all, Sophia, we got to clap it up for you because you did a fantastic job at explaining an exponential growth graph. That was great. We need to get you a whiteboard next time.
I know.
But to your point, the 2025 revenue is projected to reach around $1 billion, which is a significant increase from the previous year. The projection is based on factors like a new team with the Golden State Valkyries and increased overall attendance and merchandise sales over the league. Significant from $1 billion this year, when last year was reported to be $710 million. Again, some of these numbers are skewed to an extent, but this is the projected numbers that they had. Again, expansion teams help, and we have 2 new expansion teams coming to the 2026 season, and obviously more being added in 2028, 2030, etc. And the Fever have reported higher per person merchandise than some NBA teams, and a lot of that obviously goes down to Caitlin Clark, but Fever fans in general are paying to be at the games, paying to wear the merchandise, and we mentioned yesterday in that podcast that the Valkyries also are making over what you said, like over $200,000 almost every game, essentially, just from players or fans coming in and buying merchandise.
Yeah, I would even put myself in that because I've spent, me and my family, I spent some money at that team store. But no, I mean, like, even for example, I'll walk the streets of San Francisco and sometimes see more Valkyries year out than Warriors. Brandon Pajemski, Golden State Warriors guard, was saying that the Valkyries games are louder than the Warriors games. So they're filling the seats, there's high demand. And again, these are all just more and more things that are bringing revenue to the league that the WNBA players want a more equitable chunk of. Even the new TV rights, that's all league revenue. Some of these expansion fees as well, where Mark Davis, he bought the Las Vegas Aces for $2 million. And now that number has increased to, I think, $200 million now. So that's even more league revenue. But it's all just stuff that the players, they want to feel like they feel like they're owed a percentage of that because they're the ones that help grow the league. And I think that's very, very reasonable.
We have to remember at the end of the day, the players are the reason why we are here. Obviously, production plays a part, media rights, all of the etc. But realistically, if the talent wasn't continuing to get better, just the on-court production of everything, head coaches that are coming in, if nobody was willing to rally behind that, if the product wasn't good, it would have just stayed the same. Nobody would have just randomly all of a sudden, and again, women's sports have been cool. We're not going to act like they haven't. But the reality of the situation is this is the most that has been watched in a significant amount of time ever, honestly. we have to remember that the players are the reason that we are here, why we are watching these games, why we were tuning in, why we want to be on the broadcast for them. You know what I mean? So we have to also treat them accordingly. And I think it's a little bit of, it's, the mindset doesn't necessarily make sense. It's a little bit of a fixed mindset of, well, the NBA makes more money in terms of revenue, so you guys should just have a fixed salary. However, when we're considering these expansion teams that are also coming, which are going to add to the overall revenue, having a fixed salary now, to your point, is going to make these players, what it seems like, lose money later on. If they agree to something of this capacity now, instead of, you know, making these agreements now. And as the revenue share continues to grow, as the league grows, more players are coming in. And when we're thinking of these next waves of players, and we have Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts, Flau'jae Johnson, do you not think people are not going to want to come to these games, buy their jerseys? You know what I mean? So it just doesn't make sense, where it's just like, it seems fixed on the now and not the future. And I think that's what's bothering these players the most, where it's like, we're already kind of getting a Raven flashback or something, like like a That's So Raven glimpse of the future, that this is going to be the league. Like, people are going to be here watching these games, tuning in, rooting for these players. You have to think of the future, not just the now. And the future is, people are still going to continue loving the WNBA in a couple of years from now.
Exactly. And I think Kathy Engelbert's main argument for that fixed rate is that she still wants owners and investors to be incentivized to pour money into the league. But at the same time, if you're not pouring money into your players, then the on-court product isn't going to be as much of what you want. Because I don't know about you, but I think if you put a little bit more change in my pocket, I might play a little bit harder.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, and honestly, just that like the overall principle of the whole thing as well, knowing that the league's front office cares about these players, and that's reflected in their percentage of salary.
Absolutely. And it's just interesting because, you know, obviously, as you mentioned, we're a week away, and it seems like there's still no agreement. So again, this still impacts, to Olivia Miles' point, this impacts her future, the future of players coming in, and just the future of the players that are already within the league. But we'll continue to keep an eye on this as we get closer and closer to that October 31st deadline. But thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Women's Basketball. We enjoy having